Hi guys, hope you all doing well. Welcome back to our series of Azure Active Directory, and in this video we are going to talk about sample application. So the core agenda of this video will be knowing how to add a sample application, and the application that we are going to add will be an ASP.NET MVC app. This application is going to use MSAL authentication libraries, wherein the protocol which will be used will be OpenIdConnect. And then I will be showing you the fiddler trace to track how different tokens are getting generated. Now the reason behind covering different token or different claim types, because there was a community post wherein it was mentioned that you guys want to know more about how the custom claims work. Now, if you will read the Microsoft article, it will let you know how to customize claims or how to add a transformation. But as of now, there is no article which lists how to use extension attribute, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you. So for the lab, I'm going to use a VM wherein I have already installed Visual Studio, and that machine has internet connectivity as well. So as of now, I'm going to switch to my browser from where I will be downloading a sample app, and then I will be copying that app into my VM from where we will be doing all the configuration. So this is my browser from where I will go to Azure AD sample application, and I will install the one which is ASP.NET, and that will work with OpenIdConnect protocol. So all you have to do is you have to click on the very first article, and you will land up to a page wherein you are getting the sample of applications that work on v2.0 endpoints. Okay, so this is the app which I'm going to use, and the moment I will click on this, I will be redirected to Git page. Now it is the best practice to read about the sample that you're going to use, because this set of information actually lets you know what and all this application is going to do. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on clone or download, and then I will click on download zip, and as you can see, the application sample is downloaded on my machine. Now what I'll do is I'll copy this sample to my VM where we will be doing all the configuration. So this is my machine where I have already installed Visual Studio, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste my sample solution which I have copied, and as you can see, this is my app which is going to use OpenIdConnect. Now I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to click on extract all, and the moment I will click on extract, all the files will be extracted and we will be accessing the solution file. Now for this particular VM, what I already have is a Visual Studio 2019 Enterprise Edition. Now if you want to download, you can download it for free. I think as of now it is available for at least 90 days. And I think 90 days will be more than enough for you to understand how a particular technology works. Okay, so as of now I have just initiated the sample file, and as you can see, my application is loaded. The very first thing that you have to do is you have to go to the web.config section. Now the moment you will land up to web.config section, the first set of information that you see here, that it needs the client ID and client secret. Now what I'll do is I'll switch to my browser where we will be creating a new application, and we will be creating new client ID and client secret, and we will be embedding these values in our application so that we can test authentication. Now I'm going to click on new registration, and here I'm going to type OpenIdConnect, and since this application is going to use MSAL and we will be checking user authentication, that's exactly what I have named my application. Now since this application is going to use MSAL, I'm going to select this option. Now this value is something that exists on your application, so what I'll do is I'll switch back to my VM and I'll copy the redirect URI from here. Now if there is any mismatch in terms of the redirect value that's available on your application as well as portal, then you will get errors. Okay, so make sure that this value is exactly same which exists on your app. So as of now, what all has been done. I have downloaded a sample and I have registered an application. Now I have to update client ID and client secret in my application, and as you can see, this key value is asking me to update my client ID. Now I'll come back to my portal and I will generate a client secret that I will be using with my application. So to generate that, just click on certificates and secrets and then click on new client secret and then click on add. Now by default, the one which is generated as of now, it's for 1 year. So I'll copy this value and I'll come back to my application and then I will paste that value here. Now once you have updated both the values, it's better so that, or it is a much efficient way to just right click and rebuild solution before you launch your application. Okay, and make sure that you should not get any error, because if you will get any error, your application will not work as expected. Okay, now the next step will be checking authentication. I'm sure we will get some errors as of now because the configuration is not complete. Now the reason behind showing this method is because I would like you guys to know how to troubleshoot application on real time. Now if you get any error message like this, don't worry, since this is the first instance. At times, if you are using Visual Studio, IIS Express on your box might take a couple of minutes to load the application completely. Okay, so as of now, as you can see, this application is still loading, so I'm not going to make any change. Let's wait and let's see whether we get the default application page or not. What the expected behavior is, the moment the application will be loaded, I will get an option wherein I have to select or wherein I have to click on sign in with Microsoft, and as you can see, I have not made any change and the application is loaded. Now I have to click on this option and a redirect request will land to my tenant where the application is registered, and as you can see, now I'm getting the option to enter my credential. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type my username and then I will type my password. Okay, now as of now, I'm not really sure whether the authentication will get completed because the consent is not accepted, and as you can see, I'm getting an error. Okay, now it says that response type ID token is not enabled for this application. Now the reason behind I'm getting this error, because this application requires implicit flow to be enabled on the application. Okay, so I'll come back to my console where the application is, and then I'll click on token configuration. Sorry, I'll click on authentication and then I'll enable these two options, which says implicit grant, access token and ID token. Now depending upon the application sample with which you are working, as I've said before, if you will read all this documentation, it will help you a lot, and in this itself it is mentioned that you have to enable implicit grant. But if implicit grant is not enabled, the error which we have got is one of the sample. The reason behind showing you guys all this is because we are learning how to troubleshoot the advanced level configuration that's required for different applications. So I'll close this now and let me wait for this to get refreshed, and as you can see, it's been closed now. So I will again launch my application. Now if this time also it gives you an error, as I said before, wait for some time or just click on reload, because at times IIS Express take a couple of minutes to process the entire application. Okay, now as you can see, I'm again getting the same prompt wherein I have to click on sign in with Microsoft, and this time the expected behavior is once I will type in my username and password, I should get consent prompt. Okay, that is what I'm expecting, but let's see what happens. Okay, so I've typed in my password and as you can see, I'm getting the consent prompt. Now there are three different consent that I am getting. The first one is view basic profile. The other one is the generic consent which you will see in most of the requests, but I'm also getting read your mail. Now the reason behind I'm getting these three prompts, because if I'll go to my startup section, you can also refer this on your app, and then if I'll go to this configuration section, you will see there will be different attributes, or there will be different values that will be included in the authentication request. And as you can see, mail.read is also being sent as one of the scope. That's the reason why I'm getting these three consent prompt. Now the moment I will click on accept, I should land back to my application, and this time it should work as expected. And as you can see, I am signed in with my user object. Now capturing a fiddler trace for this example will not make any sense because we have done it so many times. Okay. Now what I'll show you is an advanced custom claim rule that we will be using, and wherein the extension attribute will be sent for this application. So if I'll come back to my deck and let me show you the rule that I have created. Okay. So usually what happens that depending upon the object type that you are using, you have to mention ID here for a normal attribute or the attribute which are already publicly exposed. Okay. But if you are trying to query an extension attribute, likewise, this is one of the examples which I have already covered, and a video is available in the channel wherein I was discussing about directory extension. So if you have not watched, please watch that video of how to enable custom attributes or how to enable directory extension attributes. Okay, so as of now I have one of my user, in fact two users in my tenant, for which this attribute value is populated, and this is a custom attribute that I have created in my on-prem AD. Okay, what I'm saying now in this particular claims mapping policy, that you have to query user, go for extension ID, copy this value and send it as employee type. Whereas the other attribute which you have to query is a normally publicly exposed attribute which is on-prem distinguished name, and send it as on-prem DN. And this is the name of my policy, or the display name of my policy which I'm going to create. Okay, so now as I've addressed before, that this is something which requires Azure AD preview PowerShell module, and make sure you run the appropriate commands, because if there will be any issue in terms of syntax that you are doing, then your policy will not work as expected. Okay, so now I'm going to paste this value and I'm going to click on enter. Now this will create a new policy which we will be mapping to our application which we have just created. So let's go back to that portal where we have our application, and this is the application which we have just created, and the name is OpenIdConnect MSAL user. Now this is application object, but if you guys remember, the policies are mapped to service principal object. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll open my service principal object of OpenIdConnect MSAL-user app, and from here we need the object ID of this particular object. So I'll copy this value and I'll come back to my PowerShell, and now what I will say that add service principal, add Azure AD service principal policy object ID of my service principal reference object ID of the policy which we have just created. So I'll copy this value and I'll paste it here, and then I'll click on enter. Now there is one more very common error that you will get when you will create claims mapping policy, and that is moreover related to signing key. And the surprising part is the set of information that you will get from browser or in the browser is not at all relatable. Now what do I mean by this? That as of now we have created a custom claim policy, and I should be using that policy to sign in with this particular user object. But the error that we will get on the portal now, once we use a fresh sign in, it will never let you know what exactly the issue is. Okay, so this has not been signed out completely. Let me forcefully sign out. So this is the endpoint that you can use for sending logout request to Azure AD. So now this will be completely signed out. Okay, so now I'll again launch my application, but before I launch my application, let's this time enable Fiddler as well. So as of now, this machine doesn't have Fiddler. What I'll do is I'll quickly install Fiddler and I'll resume the video. So I have configured Fiddler now and it's up and running, and the HTTPS traffic is also getting decrypted. And now I will again launch my application. Now this time what we have to check is the new ID token that we are getting, whether it has the extension attribute value or not. But let me tell you guys, we will again get a particular error in this case, and that will be moreover related to claims mapping policy not enabled for this application. So let me sign in again and let me show you the exact error that we get. Okay, so now as you can see, I'm getting the prompt to type my password, and the moment I will click on sign in, I should again get an error. Now the reason why we should get an error, because the consent part is already configured. Now as you can see, this error shows me that this application is required to be configured with an application specific sign-in key. Now if you will read the documentation of claims mapping policy, there is a particular comment done by any of the user who is addressing this issue. But long back there was an article on Social TechNet as well, which says that in order to fix this issue, all you have to do is you have to go to the application object of your application which you have just registered. So in our case, this is the application, and then go to manifest, and then here where it says accept mapped claims, just set it to true. That's it. Your issue will be resolved. Now this part is actually something which is publicly documented, but I thought of including it here so that if you get this error now with any of your application, you will be able to relate what exactly going on. Okay, so I'll again forcefully initiate a sign out, and then again we'll relaunch the application, and this time we should get the expected token with all the claims. Okay, so as of now the application is stopped, and again I'm going to click on the same option, which is IIS Express Google Chrome, and as you can see, this is something which we are getting again and again, because this is something which I've also addressed, that at times IIS Express takes time. So it all depends upon how good the hardware of your VM is. Maybe you are using n number of n times better hardware that I'm using, so maybe you will never get this error, but on my machine it's a generic error that usually comes. Okay, so I've again selected my account, and then I'm going to type in my password, and I'll click on sign in, and let's see what all we get on Fiddler. Okay, so I'll go back and I'll click on yes, and let's see, this is the frame which should contain our token, and let's see if we got that or not. And as you can see, this is my ID token. I'll copy this value and I'll go to jwt.ms or jwt.io, whichever website you prefer to decode the token. Both of them do the same thing, or they both have the same purpose, but you can choose anyone according to you. Okay, so as you can see, I'm getting now on-prem DN. Okay, but still I'm not getting the value for SSO ConceptsWork, that specific custom claim type that we have registered. Now there is one more reason for this, and that is, as of now the SSO account does not have the company portal or that specific attribute which was ConceptsWork employee type populated. Okay, now see, these are small things which I am covering deliberately to make you guys understand that if you are getting some result with the policy that you have configured, it means the policy is perfect. There must be something which is missing from a user object perspective itself. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'll close this, I'll come back to my browser. I'll again forcefully send a logout request, and this time I'm going to use the object which has absolutely perfect settings, all the claims populated, and this time the result that we will get will be the ideal result which we will be discussing, or which we were discussing on our deck. Okay, so I'm going to use an account which has both the values populated, and the token that we should get must have a value which is ConceptsWork hyphen employee type as the attribute, and then depending upon that particular employee, or depending upon that particular user, if he is FTE or if he is a contractor, we should get the appropriate value. So I'll again click on iOS Express Google Chrome, because the last session was active and it landed to SSO itself. Okay, so now the moment we get the prompt to sign in with the user object, we'll use the object which has all the details. There are two objects which we can use. The one is enter and the other one is IDP. This is the same example which I have covered in the directory extension video as well. So if you have already watched that, you will be able to relate what I'm saying as of now. Okay. So now I'm going to use another account, and let's just verify. Perfect. Fiddler is also running. So now what I'll do is I'll sign in with my account which has all the attributes populated, and I will click on my password and then I will sign in, and that's all. Now the token that we will get will have all the information. Now there is one more thing which you guys can observe here, that since I have changed the user, now this application will be accessing the information which is moreover related to this particular user. So this user is also getting a prompt, and this is the consent prompt which is user specific, moreover related to something which you can relate with OAuth 2.0 authorization code flow, because that's the flow wherein an identity layer is added for OpenIdConnect. Okay, so just to know how the protocol flow works, I will be posting a video on the public channel. You can view that as well, but as of now just focus whether the custom claims are getting mentioned or not. Okay, so we'll go to the same frame where we find token, and we'll right click here, we'll copy this value, and now we'll go to our browser where we will go to jwt.ms, and here we will be using the string to actually decrypt and see whether the required claims are present or not. So as I've said before, that you can either use JWT or MS. They both do the same purpose, or they both are used for decrypting token itself. So the web page is loaded now, and I'll just paste my token. And as you can see, I'm getting employee type FTE, and on-prem DN is the same value that's coming from my on-prem environment. And if you will now match this value with the rule that we have created, it is exactly same. So if I'll come back to my deck, you can see that this value has to be queried, but the JOT claim type is employee type, whereas on-prem DN has to be queried for user, but the value for the claim or the claim name is on-prem DN. Okay, so this is how the custom claim mapping works for the extension attributes. This is one of the more detailed version of what I have already covered in the public view of the channel, a video that exists over there which was moreover related to custom claims. Okay, so from this particular video we have actually created a sample app, and you can use the sample app to do a lot more testing. Okay, one of the example that I can show you right now, or that I can let you know, that you can add multiple values here, and depending upon the values that you are adding, the consent prompt will be changed for a particular user. So let's talk about a quick summary of what all we have discussed in this video. We have discussed about a sample app, which was an MVC app which uses MSAL and OpenIdConnect. We also talked about custom claims referring to extension attributes. In the next video, I'm going to cover the entire, not the entire, at least 5 to 10 very specific cases for advanced troubleshooting of Azure AD. And we'll also talk about the comparison between v1.0 and v2.0 endpoints. So if you think our channel is helping you to learn more, please feel free to share this with your technical community. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.